The massive alien warship emerged from the darkness near Saturn's rings, its purple-tinted hull reflecting the distant sunlight. Commander Lisa Wright stood at the bridge of her patrol ship, the EDF Sentinel, her green eyes fixed on the main screen. The alien vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, its size alone making their most advanced ships look like toys in comparison. "All stations, report status," Lisa ordered, keeping her voice steady despite the tension building in her chest. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their fingers dancing across control panels. "Weapons ready, shields at maximum," responded Lieutenant Eric Miller from his tactical station. "Communications standing by," added Officer Amy Porter, her hands hovering over the transmission controls. In the enemy vessel, General Vector of the Zarkax Empire watched the human ships with growing disdain. His elongated fingers drummed against his command chair as his subordinates analyzed the primitive vessels before them. The general's scaled skin shifted colors slightly, reflecting his mild annoyance at having to deal with such an obviously inferior species. "These humans dare to challenge our approach to their system." Vector's voice carried the distinct clicking sound common to his species. "Their ships are barely worth noting in our war records." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zex, bowed slightly. "The humans request diplomatic contact, Supreme General. They wish to establish peaceful first contact protocols." Vector's skin rippled with amusement. "Very well. Let us humor these primitives. Perhaps they will prove useful as a client race." The diplomatic meeting was arranged in neutral space between Saturn's moons Titan and Enceladus. The humans sent a small delegation aboard their diplomatic vessel, while Vector chose to project his image via hologram, not wishing to breathe the same air as what he considered lesser beings. Lisa Wright led the human delegation, accompanied by Diplomatic Officer Ryan Chase and Science Advisor Dr. Kate Morris. They stood in their dress uniforms, representing the best of humanity's space force. "Welcome to the Sol system," Ryan began, his diplomatic training evident in his measured tone. "We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations with your people." Vector's hologram flickered as he let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "Peace, yes, peace through submission to the Zarkax Empire. Your species will benefit greatly from our guidance." Dr. Morris stepped forward, her data pad ready. "With respect, General, we're an independent species with our own civilization. We're interested in mutual cooperation, not submission." The alien general's skin turned a deep shade of purple, a sign of growing irritation that the humans didn't yet understand. "You misunderstand, little creatures. This is not a negotiation. The Zarkax Empire does not negotiate with primitive species. We guide them, or we remove them." Lisa's hand instinctively moved closer to her sidearm. "General Vector, if you're threatening humanity, you should know that we've faced challenges before. We're prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." The general's hologram grew larger, looming over the human delegation. "Defend yourselves. With these toys you call ships. Your most powerful weapons wouldn't scratch the paint on our smallest vessel." "Sometimes strength isn't about the size of your ships," Lisa replied calmly, though her heart raced. "Humanity has survived and thrived because we never back down from a challenge." Vector's image flickered again as he raised his arm, making a slashing gesture. "Then let this be your first and last lesson in galactic politics. The Zarkax Empire claims this system. You have one planetary rotation to surrender control of your military assets. After that, we will demonstrate true power." The hologram vanished, leaving the human delegation standing in stunned silence. Lisa turned to her companions, her expression grim but determined. "Send an emergency signal to Earth Command," she ordered. Tell them we're at war." As the diplomatic vessel rushed back toward Earth, Vector watched from his command ship, his skin now a confident shade of gold. He had no doubt this would be the shortest conquest in his distinguished career. After all, how could these humans, with their primitive technology and limited experience in space warfare, possibly stand against the might of the Zarkax Empire? He would soon learn just how wrong he was about humanity's capabilities. But for now, he simply gave the order to prepare for what he thought would be an easy victory. The red dust of Mars swirled around the defensive positions as Captain Kevin Martinez peered through his tactical visor. The Zarkak ships hung in the orange sky like massive storm clouds, their shadows casting dark patterns across the colony's protective domes. Kevin had been leading the Mars garrison for 3 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "All units, check in," he commanded through the secure channel. One by one, his squad leaders reported ready. 500 Marines against what looked like an army of thousands. The odds weren't great, but Marines didn't believe in impossible battles. Inside the lead Zarkak ship, General Vector watched the human defenses with amusement. Such primitive fortifications. They don't even have energy shields. His skin flickered with confidence as he turned to his assault commander. "Begin the landing sequence. Standard conquest formation." The alien dropships descended like metallic raindrops, their anti-gravity systems creating weird patterns in the Martian dust. Kevin watched them through his visor, his expression hardening. "Remember your training," he broadcast to his troops. "Let them get nice and close." The first wave of Zarkak's warriors emerged from their ships in perfect formation, their advanced armor gleaming. They moved with mechanical precision, each step calculated, each position plotted by combat computers. It was impressive, disciplined, and entirely predictable. "Now," Kevin shouted. The Martian surface erupted. Hidden mining charges, repurposed by innovative human engineers, detonated in carefully planned sequences. The perfectly ordered alien formations shattered as the ground beneath them became chaos. Dust and debris filled the air, confusing the Zarkak sensors. Impossible. Vector's skin turned almost black with rage. They turned their mining equipment into weapons. How dare these primitives? The human counterattack came from everywhere and nowhere. Marines popped up from hidden bunkers, their weapons modified to pierce alien armor at its weakest points. Others used the colony's maintenance tunnels to appear behind enemy lines. The Zarkak's warriors, trained for direct confrontation, found themselves fighting shadows. Sergeant Linda Phillips led her squad through the underground passages, emerging behind a group of confused aliens. "Time to show them some Earth hospitality," she said, her team deploying sonic disruptors that turned the aliens' advanced armor into a prison of painful vibrations. Above the battlefield, Vector watched in growing disbelief as his first wave faltered. "Send in the heavy assault units," he commanded, his voice carrying the clicking sound of extreme agitation. "Show these humans what real power looks like." The second wave brought walking tanks, each one as tall as a small building. They stomped across the Martian surface, their weapons capable of vaporizing entire squads. Kevin watched them approach and smiled. "Officer Steve Brown, you're up," he called through the comm. "About time, sir," came the reply. Steve's engineering team had spent the last hour reprogramming the colony's atmospheric processors. With a few commands, they turned the machines into massive dust generators. The processors roared to life, spewing thick red clouds into the air. The alien tanks, designed for clear targeting, suddenly found themselves blind. Their sensors, calibrated for space combat and clear battlefields, couldn't compensate for the simple problem of dust. The machines stumbled, their targeting systems confused by millions of swirling particles. Impossible. Vector raged again, watching his expensive war machines flail about uselessly. How can they fight in these conditions? "We've been dealing with Martian dust storms since we first landed here," Kevin muttered, though the alien general couldn't hear him. "Maybe you should have done your homework." The Marines moved with practiced ease through the artificial storm, their visors equipped with filters developed over decades of Martian colonization. They attacked the tanks at their vulnerable joints, using simple explosive charges to disable the massive machines. After 6 hours of combat, the Zarkak's forces retreated to their ships, leaving behind broken machines and wounded warriors. Vector stood on his bridge, his skin cycling through colors of disbelief and rage. "How?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "How did we lose to these primitives?" "Sir," the officer replied hesitantly, "it seems they used their environment against us. They didn't fight according to any known combat doctrine." Vector stared at the red planet below, watching dust storms continue to swirl across its surface. For the first time in his military career, he felt something new: doubt. Major Susan Baker crouched in the shadow of an asteroid, her stealth suit blending perfectly with the dark rock. 5 other ships from her Special Forces team floated nearby, their systems running silent. They waited like hunters of old, patient and still as their prey approached. "Target convoy in range," whispered Lieutenant Peter Howard through the secure channel. His voice was calm despite the freezing temperatures in his powered-down ship. The team had been waiting for 18 hours, their life support systems at minimum power to avoid detection. A line of Zarkak's supply ships appeared against the star-filled background. They moved with typical alien precision, following the exact same route they'd used 3 times before. Susan allowed herself a small smile. The aliens never seemed to learn that patterns could be deadly. "All units, execute on my mark," she said softly. Her team responded with silent acknowledgments, their training showing in their discipline. 3, 2, 1, mark. 6 human ships burst from their hiding places, engines flaring to life. The Zarkak's convoy, caught completely by surprise, scattered in confusion. Their escorts tried to form a defensive pattern, but the humans were already among them, striking from multiple directions at once. On his command ship several light minutes away, General Vector received the distress call. His skin turned a mottled gray of frustration as he watched another supply convoy fall under attack. "How do they keep finding our shipments?" he demanded, slamming his long fingers against his command chair. "We change routes, we add escorts, yet these humans appear like ghosts and vanish just as quickly." His tactical officer, now much more cautious after several failures, spoke carefully. "Sir, they seem to be studying our patterns. And their ships, they're willing to power down completely to avoid detection. Our crews would never take such risks." Susan's team struck hard and fast. They disabled the escort ships with precise shots to engines and weapons systems, careful not to cause fatal damage. The supply ships were their real targets. "Charlie team, begin cargo retrieval," Susan ordered as her ship dodged enemy fire. "Delta team, keep those escorts busy." Peter's voice came through the comm again. "Major, got something interesting here. These ships are carrying terraforming equipment. Looks like they were planning to reshape Mars after they took it." "Well," Susan replied as she lined up another shot, "I guess they'll have to reshape their plans instead. Pack up what we can use, rig the rest to blow." The raid lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, the human ships vanished into the asteroid field, leaving behind crippled escort ships and empty cargo hulls. They took what they could carry and destroyed the rest, just as they had been doing for weeks. Vector reviewed the damage reports with growing anger. "These humans, they're not fighting like a proper military force. There's no honor in these hit-and-run tactics." His new second-in-command, recently promoted after the Mars disaster, dared to speak up. "Sir, perhaps that's why they're succeeding. They don't fight like any species we've encountered. They adapt, they take risks. They're savages." Vector interrupted, his skin now pulsing with angry colors. "Using primitive stealth techniques, willing to sit powerless in space for hours, scavenging like space pirates." "Sir," another officer called out, "we're getting reports of similar raids in 3 other sectors. They're hitting multiple supply lines simultaneously." Vector's rage turned to cold calculation. These raids were more than just harassment. They were a carefully planned strategy. The humans were bleeding his forces slowly, stealing resources they could use while denying them to his army. It was crude, primitive, and undeniably effective. In the darkness of space, Susan's team regrouped at a hidden base tucked inside a hollow asteroid. As they unloaded their captured supplies, she checked the latest reports from other raid teams. Across the solar system, human forces were adapting, learning, and striking where least expected. "Get some rest," she told her team as they secured their ships. "We go out again in 10 hours. The aliens still have plenty to learn about fighting humans." While they rested, their support crews were already analyzing the captured alien technology, finding new ways to use it, adapt it, and turn it against its makers. That was another thing the Zarkax were learning about humans. They were very good at turning an enemy's strength into a weakness. Dr. Amanda Collins studied the brain scans of captured Zarkax soldiers on her lab's main screen. After 3 months of research, she had finally found what she was looking for. The alien minds were different from human ones, but they shared one important trait. They could feel fear. "Sergeant Frank Mitchell, please come to the lab," she called through the intercom. While waiting, she reviewed her notes one more time. The aliens' color-changing skin wasn't just for communication. It was directly linked to their emotional state. They couldn't hide their feelings, even if they tried. Frank walked in, his combat uniform dusty from the morning's training session. "What have you got for me, Doc?" "Look at this," Amanda pointed to the scans. "Their brains have an oversized region for processing order and hierarchy. They literally can't handle chaos. It hurts them physically." Frank's eyes lit up with understanding. "So that's why they get so rattled when we break formation and attack from random directions. They're not just confused, they're in pain." On the Zarkax command ship, General Vector received another disturbing report. His skin shifted to a sickly yellow as he read the details. 3 more of his patrol ships had been found drifting in space, their crews completely unharmed but refusing to fight. "What did the humans do to them?" he demanded. His psychological warfare expert, Zenra, looked uncomfortable. They showed our crews something, sir. Images and sounds that made no sense. Patterns that broke all natural laws. The crews say they can't forget what they saw." Back on Earth, Frank's team put Amanda's research to work. They modified their ship's external lights and broadcast systems. Every human vessel now carried what they called chaos packages, combinations of lights, sounds, and movements designed to disturb the aliens' sense of order. "Remember," Frank told his squad, "we're not trying to kill them. We want them to remember. We want them to tell stories." Fear spreads faster than plasma fire. The next battle proved their theory. When the Zarkax attacked an Earth outpost near Venus, they found themselves facing a new kind of defense. Human ships moved in impossible patterns, their lights pulsing in sequences that made alien minds scream in protest. "What is this madness?" Vector watched the footage, his own skin rippling with discomfort. "They're not even trying to hit our ships. They're just dancing." His bridge crew struggled to watch the screens. The humans had discovered that certain movement patterns could trigger intense vertigo in Zarkax warriors. Simply watching the human ships move was enough to make some crew members sick. Amanda received the battle reports with satisfaction. "It's working better than we hoped. They can't adapt to something that doesn't follow any rules." In his private quarters, Vector recorded his daily report to the Empire's high command. His skin kept shifting between colors as he spoke, showing his inner turmoil. "The humans have discovered our biological weaknesses," he admitted. "They don't just fight our bodies, they attack our minds. They create chaos that follows no pattern, no logic. My crews are beginning to hesitate before every engagement, wondering what new madness they will face." A week later, Frank's team tested their most ambitious plan yet. They surrounded a Zarkax patrol fleet and broadcast a specially designed signal. It combined random light patterns with fragments of human music and laughter. The effect was devastating. The alien crews, unable to process the seemingly random input, broke formation and fled. Some ships fired on their own allies, their crews too disoriented to tell friend from foe. "Sir," Vector's tactical officer reported, his skin pale with fear. The humans are spreading these attacks across all sectors. Our crews are starting to see human ships even when there are none. The fear, it's spreading through the fleet. Vector stared at the stars through his command ship's window. These humans had done the impossible. They had turned the Zarkax's greatest strength, their love of order, into a weakness. For the first time, he wondered if his species had made a terrible mistake in attacking Earth. Perhaps, he murmured to himself, his skin showing a deep blue of revelation. We should have studied their history more carefully. Any species that can weaponize chaos itself is not to be underestimated. Chief Engineer Daniel Ross stood in his workshop, surrounded by pieces of captured alien technology. His hands were covered in grease as he worked on what looked like a mess of wires and metal, but was actually a modified version of the Zarkax energy core. "Pass me that wrench, would you?" he asked his assistant, Officer Carol Bennett. She handed him the tool while checking readings on her tablet. "The power output is still unstable," she said, frowning at the numbers. "But it's putting out 3 times more energy than their original design." Daniel grinned as he made another adjustment. "That's because they built it to be perfect, not practical. Sometimes the messy solution is the better one." On the Zarkax command ship, General Vector reviewed the latest battle footage with growing concern. His skin shifted to a worried gray as he watched human ships using modified versions of his own people's weapons, modified in ways that should have been impossible. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Those systems should have self-destructed if tampered with. Our engineers spent years making them tamper-proof." His technical advisor nervously displayed more data. "Sir, the humans, they don't follow proper engineering protocols. They just keep trying things until something works. It's completely unscientific." Back in the workshop, Daniel tested his latest creation. It was a human missile loaded with parts from a stolen alien shield generator. On paper, it made no sense. In practice, it could punch through any Zarkax defense like it wasn't even there. "Ready for field testing," he announced, watching the diagnostic screen. "Let's see how their perfect shields handle a taste of their own technology." The test flight squadron, led by Captain Maria Reyes, launched from Earth's moon base. Their ships carried Daniel's new weapons, each one a mix of human ingenuity and alien tech. "Remember," Maria told her pilots, "their computers will try to predict where we'll shoot. Don't think like a computer. Think like a human. Be random." The battle began when they encountered a Zarkax patrol fleet. The alien ships moved in their usual perfect formation, their tactics calculated by advanced battle computers. "Now," Maria ordered. Her squadron broke formation, each pilot flying on instinct rather than following programmed patterns. The alien ship's computers couldn't predict their movements. As Vector watched from his command ship, the human vessels danced through space in patterns that defied military logic. They fired their hybrid weapons at angles that seemed random but somehow found their marks every time. Impossible. Vector's skin pulsed with frustration. Their targeting computers can't be that advanced. "Sir," his tactical officer replied, "they're not using targeting computers. They're flying and shooting manually. Our systems can't predict what their instincts will do next." In the workshop, Daniel received the battle data with satisfaction. His modified weapons had worked perfectly. The unpredictable energy signatures had confused the alien shields, creating gaps that no purely alien or human weapon could have made. "Sometimes," he told Carol as they watched the footage, "the best technology is the one you don't overthink." Vector called an emergency meeting with his command staff. His skin had taken on a deep purple of serious concern. "These humans," he said, pacing the command deck, "they take our most advanced technology and turn it into something crude but effective. They ignore all the safety protocols, all the careful calculations, and somehow make it work better than before." One of his officers spoke up, his skin showing bands of confusion. "But how can their primitive modifications improve our perfect designs?" "Because," Vector replied, his skin shifting to the blue of understanding, They don't try to make it perfect. They make it work. And in war, that's what matters most. As the human ships returned from their successful mission, Daniel was already working on his next modification. He held up a piece of alien tech, studying it in the workshop's light. The Zarkax built this to be unbreakable, he mused. They never considered that sometimes you need to break something to make it better. Vector added a new note to his war journal that night. The humans don't just use technology. They reinvent it. They don't respect the perfection of our designs, and somehow that makes them more dangerous than any enemy we've ever faced. Colonel Mary Thompson stood at the command center of the space station Artemis, hidden within the asteroid belt. Holographic displays showed hundreds of dots representing both human and Zarkax ships spread across the solar system. After months of fighting, everything had led to this moment. All fleet commanders, check in, she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. One by one, the commanders reported ready. The largest human fleet ever assembled waited for her signal. On his command ship, General Vector studied similar tactical displays. His skin showed patches of both confidence and worry. The humans had been surprisingly difficult to defeat, but now he had gathered most of his empire's forces for one decisive battle. Let them come, he said to his officers. We have superior numbers, superior technology. This time, we will crush them with overwhelming force. Mary looked at the alien fleet formations. They were perfect, as always. Too perfect. She smiled slightly as she opened the comm channel to all human ships. Remember your training, she said, but more importantly, remember who you are. We're humans. We don't fight because a computer tells us to. We fight because we must, because we can, and because we will not let anyone take our home from us. The battle began in the space between Jupiter's moons. The Zarkax fleet moved forward in precise formations, their ships creating geometric patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. Now, Mary commanded, Operation Chaos begins. The human fleet split into seemingly random groups. Some ships flew straight at the enemy. Others hid behind asteroids. Some appeared to retreat. The Zarkax computers tried to analyze the pattern and failed. What are they doing? Vector demanded, his skin shifting rapidly between colors. There's no logic to their movements. Sir, his tactical officer reported, each human ship appears to be following its own plan. We can't predict where they'll go next. Mary watched as her fleet carried out their carefully planned chaos. Every captain had been given one simple order: surprise the enemy. How they did it was up to them. Captain Ben Foster led his squadron straight through the alien formation, his ship spinning and weaving in ways that made the Zarkax targeting computers malfunction. Lieutenant Laura Chen's group used modified mining lasers to turn asteroids into weapons, creating clouds of high-speed debris that scattered the perfect alien formations. Vector's skin turned almost black with frustration as his fleet's formation broke apart. How can they coordinate without a central battle plan? This defies all military logic. The answer came in the form of more human ships appearing behind his fleet. While the chaos in front had drawn his attention, Mary had secretly moved her reserve forces into position. All ships, Mary broadcast on an open channel that the aliens could hear. Show them what humans can do. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. Human ships darted between their larger alien counterparts, using their small size and maneuverability to devastating effect. Modified weapons pierced supposedly impenetrable shields. Improvised tactics confused sophisticated targeting systems. Vector watched in growing horror as his perfect fleet fell into disarray. Ships that had fought together for years now collided with each other, their crews unable to handle the unpredictable human assault. Fall back, he finally ordered, his skin pale with shock. All ships, emergency retreat. As the Zarkax fleet fled toward the outer solar system, Mary allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the strongest formation was no formation at all. Send word to Earth, she ordered. Tell them the asteroid belt is secure. And tell them. She paused, looking at the tactical display showing the retreating alien fleet. Tell them that humanity has shown the Zarkax Empire what real warfare looks like. In his private quarters, Vector recorded a message to his high command. His skin had settled into a deep blue of profound realization. "We have made a grave error," he reported. "These humans, they are not primitives playing at war. They are warriors who have turned unpredictability into an art form. And I fear we have only seen a fraction of what they are truly capable of." Admiral John Carter watched from the bridge of his flagship as the combined human fleet gathered near Jupiter's orbit. The massive gas giant provided a dramatic backdrop for what he hoped would be the final battle of this war. 6 months of fighting had led to this moment. "Status report." He called out to his bridge crew. The response came quickly from multiple stations. "All ships report ready, Admiral. Modified shields at full power. New weapons systems online." The last remnants of the once mighty Zarkax fleet faced them across space. General Vector's command ship sat at the center of their formation, its purple hull scarred from previous battles. Inside his ship, Vector studied the human fleet with new eyes. His skin had settled into a steady blue-gray of deep thought. The humans had positioned their ships in a way that looked random but somehow felt deliberate. "Your orders, Supreme General," his tactical officer asked nervously. Vector was silent for a long moment. "Send a message to the human admiral. I wish to speak with him." The request surprised both sides. Admiral Carter accepted the communication, and Vector's hologram appeared on the bridge of the human flagship. "Admiral," Vector began, his skin showing bands of multiple colors, "your species has proven themselves to be remarkable." "Thank you, General," Carter replied calmly. "Though I wish you had realized that before starting this war." Vector's skin rippled with what might have been embarrassment. "We believed we knew what made a species advanced. We measured progress by technology, by the perfection of military formations, by the precision of battle plans." "And now?" Carter asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Now we understand that true advancement comes in many forms. Your people took our perfect weapons and made them better by making them imperfect. You turned our strengths into weaknesses. You showed us that chaos can be more powerful than order." The bridge crew listened in silence as the alien general continued. "My report to the Empire will be clear. Humanity is not to be underestimated. You are the most formidable species we have ever encountered, not despite your apparent primitiveness, but because of how you embrace and overcome it." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "Does this mean the Zarkax Empire is ready to discuss peace?" "Peace." Vector's skin shifted to a new color, one no human had seen before. "Yes, but not just peace. We wish to learn from you. Your adaptability, your creativity, your willingness to embrace the unpredictable. These are traits our empire needs." "I'm sure we can learn from you as well," Carter offered diplomatically. "Your technology, when combined with human ingenuity, has already shown amazing potential." The formal peace negotiations began right there in space, with both fleets bearing witness. As Vector and Carter worked out the details, their crews watched with a mixture of relief and curiosity. Later that day, Vector made his final entry in his war journal. "The Zarkax Empire has existed for 10,000 years. In all that time, we believed we were teaching lesser species the proper way to wage war. Now, in the span of 6 months, one supposedly primitive species has taught us that everything we thought we knew about warfare, about progress, about advancement, was incomplete." He paused, his skin showing the deep blue of profound understanding. "The humans are remarkable not because they defeated us, but because they showed us a better way. They proved that perfection is not always perfect, that chaos can be a strategy, and that true strength lies not in following the established path, but in finding new ones. Let this be recorded in our histories. The humans did not just win a war. They changed an empire. and we are better for having faced them. As the Zarkak's fleet prepared to leave the solar system, Admiral Carter watched them go from his bridge. A junior officer approached him. "Sir, do you think they really learned their lesson?" Carter smiled. "They learned the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate humanity. Because just when you think you have us figured out, we'll surprise you." The war was over, but its impact would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had proven itself not just as warriors, but as teachers, showing an ancient empire that sometimes the best way forward is the path that no one expects.